what I love is that we're not alone in our thoughts. I think we feel alone in our thoughts at times.
Mm-hmm.
So we think no one else ever thinks this, but that's just not true. Everybody has felt something like that.
Welcome to Business Briefs, where we indulge in bite-sized business and legal tips to level up our businesses, but also get to know some amazing entrepreneurs and business leaders out there. Today, I have the amazing Brooke Allison with me. She is a strategist. She is a coach, but I'm going to let her introduce herself and also tell us about what she does and why she started. So, Brooke, welcome to Business Briefs. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is awesome. So let's see if we can get this down in a nutshell of how I got started. But basically what I call myself is I'm a mind shift expert and an achievement strategist. So with that said, is I like to pair 50-50 really. It's like a really beautiful blend, the mind rewiring needed for success and the proven strategy. Because a lot of people out there, a lot of entrepreneurs, the way I describe this is it's like they're walking down a dark tunnel. And so when we work together, it's like I get to turn all the lights on for you. So you actually get to see like where you're going, what it looks like, what you do every day, every week, every month, every quarter. And you have more of a foolproof plan to get there. And when the negative Nancy thoughts come up, when the second guessing, the fear, the worry, you bring that to me and I get to help you shift within 10 to 15 minutes. It's really amazing. So in a nutshell, what I do is I help entrepreneurs collapse time around receiving their next $100,000. And we do that by kind of really pairing the two together and embodying the fiercely unstoppable movement. So that is something that I've been a part of for a very long time. I'm also a master practitioner in NLP, master hypnotherapist, time techniques, etc. I've got like 10 different certifications to really support my clients to their success that they desire.
Wow. Wow. Well, there's like so many questions going through. Yes. But how did you get here? In the sense, how did you see this to be an opportunity? And were there parts of your life that led you to this place where you are today?
Yeah, I'm a big believer that your life leaves clues. Success leaves clues and your life leaves clues. So hindsight's always 20/20, right? We can look back and be like, oh, that makes so much sense why my journey came this way. As a little girl, I've always known that I was going to be doing something big. My little girl dream was to be like Celine Dion's backup dancer. That's literally what I wanted to do for a living, was to be her backup dancer. And so it's funny, I've always wanted to make an impact. I started my first business when I was 22 years old. It was a network marketing company, but it honestly opened my eyes to the idea of being a business owner. It got me to start dreaming. I remember like dusting off some of my dreams that I thought weren't possible. And then, I moved across the country and that was many years in between. Okay. So I did that business for about 4 or 5 years or so, give or take. I met a woman and she and I connected and she helped me with my first business and whatever. And I worked with her a little bit. She was the one who introduced me to Facebook groups. At the time, I was like, I don't even know what a Facebook group is. This was years ago. Yeah. Now I run a very successful Facebook group, but didn't even know what one is. And she popped me into a few of them, local and bigger. And in one of the groups, almost all of those people were coaches. I thought a coach was like at the gym,
Yeah.
Keep going, or like, a soccer coach or something like that. And I remember seeing this opportunity being like, I would be really good at this. There's something about me that as soon as I make a decision to do something, I kind of just go all in and do it. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. I was in a space that, a lot of people know this about my story, but I was on food stamps when I first started this business. So although I had my other business and I was seen as a huge success, I was really struggling financially on the inside. I was working 4 part-time jobs, still not able to make ends meet. It was insane, and was on food stamps, and I was grateful for that, but also thoroughly embarrassed. And I started this business And because I remember just praying that like there has to be something more than just this for me. Like I'm not meant to be in this struggle forever. Like what else am I meant to do? And this opportunity kind of arose. And in the grand scheme of things, I feel like it took off pretty quickly. Now my clients are able to see success a lot faster than I did because of everything that I went through. But within 6 weeks, I had 20,000 in sales. Within a couple more weeks, I was at 50,000 in sales. I had 6 figures my first full year of business. And then we've since then scaled to $1 million and growing, which is super exciting. But it all started, I have to thank that woman, because if it wasn't for my conversation with one person, I would have never potentially known that this avenue would have existed.
Yeah. Brooke, this is really inspiring, honestly, like just listening to you and also knowing a little bit about your history, which is absolutely, you're transparent about it on your website. You have it right there up in front. And I know that you just said that it was embarrassing to have
It was embarrassing for me personally. I'm not saying it has to be for everybody else, but I felt embarrassed.
And I understand that 100%. And there are other people out there that are probably going through something else, but it might be embarrassing to them too. And it's a personal feeling at the end of the day. Yeah. How did you overcome that embarrassment to get to the next step? Because I feel like I know personally sometimes, whether it's an embarrassment or a fear, ultimately it's a fear. How do you overcome that fear to allow yourself to open the doors of success for yourself and not fear that someone's judging you because of that particular embarrassment in your life?
Yeah, it's such a good question, because to be honest, before I started my coaching business, I don't know if anybody except my mom maybe knew that I was on food stamps. I did not tell anybody. Like nobody knew, because it was such a, I just felt like it needed to be private. It wasn't anybody's business. But with the empowerment that comes along with being a coach, helping people succeed, I truly believe that there are so many lessons within stories. And so when we share these stories, because if it wasn't for someone else who started sharing money wins, like I am so grateful for people who talk about money, because it shattered all of my belief systems that said that I'm not enough and I can't do that. And I can't earn that level of money because I'm not a lawyer or a doctor or whatever, like a big salesperson. I literally thought that people who made $10,000 or more a month, that was way above me. And that was so beautiful. So it starts by getting really curious and building your self-awareness muscle. And if that's something that with every single client that I work with, if all I could ever do for them is help them build that self-awareness muscle, my job would be completely whole and complete. And that would be the most amazing, transformative, inspiring situation that I could give anybody, if I could just plop that into anybody involved. But as you start to recognize, and I teach this as a cycle of emotions, and so something I talk about my clients is we start everything with excitement. So, and you know, even your new day, potentially, you're like, well, it's a new day, thank God, right?
Yeah.
So like, whatever it is, you're like, thank goodness it's a brand new day. Exactly. I'm good. Like, whatever. Yesterday sucked. Today is good. That can be it. It could be a new adventure. It could be a new goal. It could be a new program. It could be a new relationship. It doesn't matter. But then almost immediately the fear starts to creep in. We all have that. But those what if spirals that we go down, the what if it doesn't work out? What if I fail? What if nobody signs up? What if I am on food stamps forever? What if that happens? Right. I always say that if you're gonna what if the bad, you must what if the good too. So just do yourself a favor. That's to just start doing that. It's those subtle shifts, because you get to choose. And I say this with the full understanding that we don't always choose everything that happens around us, and we can't always just shift out of something as easily as we desire to, but we do have the choice to start thinking a little bit differently to feel better. We do have that choice when we're ready. You can sulk, you can have your couch days, that's fine, but then choose again. So we go from excitement, that's at the top, then we go to fear, then we go to doubt, which we all know what that's like, right?
Yeah.
Then we're usually in denial. Now, denial is a tricky one to identify where you're at. Denial comes through either as, I don't know if you've ever had a mentor or you gone to a training and you're like, I know all of this and none of this worked for me before. And I'm so frustrated. And you're kind of like defensive where you're not really hearing the advice that someone is giving you for your benefit. So that's one way denial can show up. Another way denial can show up is procrastination or avoidance, when you're avoiding doing something because of that. Yeah, I'm a procrastinator at times too, but it's important to identify where we are in that cycle. No one's exempt from this cycle. We all go through it.
Yeah.
Then we get into, usually, because if you think about it, we went from a super high to fear, doubt, denial. We get into an I quit phase. You know, like throw it in the towel, like I'm done. Why am I even doing this? This is stupid. Like I'm just going to give up. And eventually, usually what like kicks in almost immediately after that is the anger phase. And anger doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can really, it's such a similar energy. It's a very similar vibration to excitement. It's just different channeled energy. So it's like, when you're angry, sometimes you get to the point where you're like, oh, I did not come this far to only come this far.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. This is happening. Like, absolutely not. I'm doing this thing. Anger puts you into action. Action brings you back to excitement. So there's a couple things that we just, talked about. Is one, I help my clients always identify where they are in the cycle of emotions to figure out what do we need to do to get you back into the excited state. Our goal eventually is to go from like action to excitement, but it's understanding that we all go through a cycle. And that's just from my studies. The other thing that we are doing is building your self-awareness and just being gentle with yourself a little bit. There's so many tips and tricks that you can do. And I'll give you one of my favorite money expansion activities that I've ever done that I truly believe helped me start to see how 10K months and beyond were actually possible for me. Because at one time I was like, I have like $10 in my account.
Right.
I overdrafted a lot. Like that was just kind of my reality at the time. But just because you're in a current financial situation, that does not have to dictate your future financial situation. You first have to kind of give yourself that permission that, hey, it's okay to be where I am and I get to grow and expand.
Right.
And I'd love to share one way that people can do that.
Please do. I was going to ask you actually, how can we create the...
Yes, there are a million ways. In fact, this year, a couple of months ago, I actually did a play shop because I've never seen anybody do something like this before. But literally the whole 2 hours or so, we played with money. And we went through all the different exercises that kind of took me from food stamps to earning over $1 million and growing. And I bought my own house. I traveled the world, all from this business.
I love it.
So anyways, one of my favorite ones is what I call receive and spend. And so what happens in your brain, and I'm sure you've heard this before. Have you heard someone say, don't worry about the how? Have you ever heard someone say that before?
Yeah.
I have a bone to pick with those people because there's a fine line of not worrying about the how, but then also needing to understand how it can come together. How it could be possible for you. So what we're doing in this exercise is, yes, we're going to release the outcome overall because we don't know how it's going to come to us, but you're starting to show yourself the reality that this can be real and it can come to you. So what I did is took a piece of paper, two pieces of paper. I put $10,000 at the very top because that was my goal at the time. I was like, that's what I want to earn. I want to do that. And every day I would go in and I would think about the offers and what I had for sale. And I would go in and be like, okay, someone pays in full for this one. Okay, that's $4,000. Okay, someone, is on a payment plan for this. I've got 3 people on a payment plan. Okay, that's da 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 da. And I would literally receive, and maybe it would be like, I found $100 on the ground. Woo! I would receive $10,000 every day in different ways. All just on paper. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you spend it. And you want to spend it down to 0. And it's not like you're actually going to literally spend it. But what you're going to do is, if you want it in your savings account, you identify, okay, I want 2,000 of this to go into savings. I want 4,000 of this to be in my checking. But you're very intentional with where the money is going to go once you have it.
Right.
Because often, a lot of people, they desire a certain level of income, but they don't ever have a reason or know where the money is even going to go once they actually receive it.
Yeah.
You want to kind of eliminate that questioning and be very certain in that.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And so is this money that you're envisioning coming in, right? Or is it
and
money coming
I
in?
find visualization for me personally works better when I speak it out or when I write it out than it does for me to just close my eyes and just like sit here. Personally, that hasn't worked for me. And so whatever is the best way for you to visualize, but what I love about it is when something becomes pen to paper, it actually becomes a tangible situation. So your brain gets to see it as something that can actually happen. So I always just write it out, and it's just different ways that money can flow to you every single day to add up to $10,000.
And then do you do this every day? What do you do with the
For a while, I did.
Every day.
For a long time, I did. I don't anymore all the time, but I'll start again. This is where your self-awareness. I've been on a personal development journey for the past 8 years. So it didn't just happen overnight. I can now, so I teach something called the toxic thought transformation. And it's something that I created that I started doing a long time ago. I had left a pretty abusive relationship and it really wasn't great. And I was at an all low when it came to my confidence. So people see me today and they're like, Brooke, you're this confident being. And yes, I am. But confidence is a learnable skill. It is not something that I had. And I still have to work on it all the time. And the toxic thought transformation is something that I used to do on a daily basis because I was in need of doing it daily. You have to honor yourself. I'm not a big person that's like a morning routine. I think you should do something, but do you have to be so strict with yourself? No. But if you're in need, let's do it for 30 days. Let's see what that transformation looks like. So that's where that self-awareness identity comes into place, where you can really zone in on what exactly you need. Because at this point, I can identify a thought and just do it all in my head rather than having to write it down. But at one time, I personally was not strong enough to do that at the time. So you get to evolve as you evolve. But I will tell you, when I have a money goal that I've not hit before, I absolutely bring out that exercise. And I'm like, okay, how could this come together? Because it shows your brain that it's possible. And as soon as it's in your conscious awareness, your brain will seek evidence for you that yes, this is happening.
Okay, wow. And then just out of curiosity, what do you do with that paper? Do you like file it in your daily?
It's just in my like little journal.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I guess you could it wouldn't hurt to have it visually, like maybe at least one, I'm like looking at my wall here. I'm like, I've got some wall space over here. That could be cool. I've got like right here, I've got a little Post-it that says, I'm so excited and grateful for my 500K cash again and again. So it's just like a repeating, like always coming through, so it's like, it never hurts to have a visual representation of it. It can just live in your computer. It can live in your, journal. It really, I don't have an answer past that. I think do what feels best for you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's so important because honestly, like just yesterday I was sitting with some of my friends and we were talking about how there's certain generational differences on how people perceive certain things.
Oh, yeah.
My daughter is making these bracelets and she can easily have the money conversation. It's not a tough thing for her. Meanwhile, I feel like my friend and I were like, we had a hard time talking about money. And even still today we do when I have to talk to some clients about money, and it becomes an uncomfortable situation for me. They may not feel uncomfortable, but I feel uncomfortable. And it's such a mind shift that we need to have on there about that, like you are working a lot, you have a lot of experience, and you have a lot of these things that add up to the value that you're bringing to that table.
Yes. And that's something that I work on with me, because you are always your best client. That's something to remember too. It's like, I do everything that I do with my clients with myself. So that's something to be said. But a lot of people have, especially when it comes to sales and the sales process, as soon as that little like, okay, now we have to talk about money. And it's fun because when I have a sales call, I'll ask someone their buying process. Like, what does their customer journey buying process actually look like from stranger to paying customer? And you'd be surprised how many people don't know that information. Or as soon as we get someone on a call, they don't actually sell on the call. And it's just extra work. And so there's definitely something going on that we can shift and work on to help feel more confidence. But again, so that's one of my taglines, right? Is like, if you're not at the cash flow that you desire, there's something going on with your confidence. It's a direct tether to going on there. Now, if you're not confident, there's something that you're not clear on. So the way it looks, if you read it properly, it's like clarity plus confidence equals cash flow. But they're direct tethers to each other. So we can identify what's happening here. Then we have to identify how you're actually operating the issue or the problem. And then we can do an exercise to kind of shift that. But what I love is that we're not alone in our thoughts. I think we feel alone in our thoughts at times. So no one else ever thinks this. But that's just not true. Everybody has felt something like that. Yeah. And it's working on it to where you feel really confident in your sales process or in your delivery or something like that. Even I think about if it was not for people speaking out about their financial wins, I never would have gone for $30,000 cash months and beyond. I never would have known it was possible. So how can I then be the belief barrier breaker is what I call that. But the belief barrier breaker to show that other people can do it too. So it's not only what you're doing for yourself, but all the people who are watching you as well.
Right. Wow, I need you in my life. This is amazing. Oh my God, fantastic. I'm just going to shift a few gears though.
Yeah.
I know that you have built this beautiful business and you are really the output is also showing with all the input of yours in your business as well. But you've definitely had some struggles and some challenges.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's so funny because I feel like I've gone through a lot of things and I've asked other, business friends or whatever. And they're like, oh no, I've never dealt with anything like that. And I'm like, no, why me? Why do I have to go through all of this? And so, but what I always take it as is like, and if you ever feel that way too, is I always take it as, okay, I'm learning the hard lesson to be able to help guide my future clients better and to be better prepared for my future. And so I'll tell you this one example a little bit here, but basically a couple of my clients had, actually two of them teamed up together to no longer pay me. And I had contracts in place. I've already had a lawyer in place and everything as well. So I've had things there to protect me because I've had other scenarios where people just didn't honor their contracts. And I feel like we need conversations on that. And please talk about that because it's like people don't think that there's there's like a, hey, if you don't pay your car bill, your car is going to get repossessed. Like that's the thing that happens. You can't buy a refrigerator and be like, oh, sorry, I can't make the payment today. That doesn't happen. So it's like people need to honor their agreements, number one, like always be in integrity, like karma is a real thing. So when we look at that though, what happened is I did not have, with the photography and stuff, I did not have, even though I paid for this beautiful photo shoot for me and my clients at the mastermind event, I paid for the entire thing for people to come and be supported. It wasn't what they expected. And so they tried to find any way to get out of the contract. And at the time, I did not have a photography release, even though this was a gift to them just as much as it was for us as well. Right. And so because of the likeness and everything, you learn a lot of lessons throughout, but I was devastated. I literally was like, my heart was broken. I was just on a high of coming home from this amazing event. Everybody seemingly had a great time. Like I said, I paid for everything, all of the food, the accommodations. Like it was an incredible event. And I eventually had to separate that out as just because there's a few, bad apples doesn't mean that it diminishes the power of what happened as well. Right. So there's been multiple things. To be honest, I think I kind of like black them out. You guys just make sure that you check stuff out. Even one of my most recent clients, I felt so bad. I kind of, but I had to have this conversation with her because she tried to use this phrase. And I was like, we really need to see if that's trademarked because it's so popular already. And I was like, I don't want you to go through a future battle when we can just kind of solve this and nip it in the bud now. Right. And so it's having those hard conversations with your clients as well to be like, hey, I'm just looking out for your best interest long term because I didn't have that for myself. Nobody ever guided me in the way that I try to guide my clients.
Right. I think that's so wonderful that you can actually kind of give that wisdom because truly the thing is that when I have some clients that come to me, they've already decided the name of the company, they've already decided this, they're already branding. They're not 100%, they're in commerce, but they're not like, they're not all over commerce yet. And seriously, sometimes I'm just like, can we put a pause right here? Like, I love the name, I love everything about this, but we need to make sure you can use it in the capacity that you're intending to use it. And there have been times when, unfortunately, I've had to have that hard conversation of, we're going to have a backup plan. Like, we're going to have something else. We can try to fight it. We can try to distinguish it. But the person that has it and they're really loving on it and they're going to fiercely fight for it too, because they have a trademark already or they have something existing. And the only way to protect your trademark and to make it something that is a trademark is to police it all the time and to protect it, which is to have the hard conversations that you've already had, Brooke, with your clients or with peers or with, like people who just don't get it.
And that's something that I always tell my clients too, is when you're thinking about a program name or something new, I always Google to see if it already exists. I don't always look to see if it's a trademark or not, because, sometimes program names, I'm like, I can change that if it needs to be changed later. It's not the end of the world. Like if someone was trademarked and they reached out to me, I'd be like, yeah, I'll change it. Like, no problem. Yeah. That's what's hard, is it's the unsexy side of business, right? It's like the stuff that people don't always talk about.
And you don't want to. You're just like, it's boring. But you actually made a great point. It's not, of course, it's not like what's in the USPTO only, like the trademark, the federal final trademarks. Even on my little quick legal tips here and there, your best friend is Google. Google can literally tell you if that name is already existent in the same way you're using it. There might be that name, but maybe they're using it differently. But if it's already out there, you kind of know that is there before you, unless you started it way in advance and now you're just checking Google to see if anybody's like popping up with your name. But Google's a great spot to start. So
even just to be sure that you're like standing out a little bit too, because you don't want to have a program or an offer that sounds like everything that already exists out there. So it's like, well, how can we make it unique? How can we? So that's what's the beautiful thing about knowing all of this, is that I get to kind of help my clients pull out something that didn't even exist before, because I'm like, well, we're not going to use that, but how do we make it better? How do we make it uniquely you, so you can excel even greater than you could with something that already exists,
Yeah, gosh, you have so much to offer on your end. And I'm just so happy that you came and you shared with us, because even just hearing you speak is very motivational. So I'm sure that, there's so much value that you give to your clients as well. Now, before we exit, I always like to ask all my guests, what is your anchor? What holds you steady?
Oh, that's a good question. I've never even had it be asked to me in that way. What is my anchor? What holds me steady? And I think that that's something that probably evolves and changes over time. I think for me right now, it's always been having a desire to chase after. For me, it's not actually achieving the result all the time. Like, we love to achieve results, but usually we don't even celebrate it, or we'll be like, well, that was cool. Did that. Now what? And so for me, I've noticed that I achieve almost all of my goals. Like, almost all of my goals I've ever set for myself, I've achieved them, which is an amazing quality. And I love helping others achieve. And yet, always having something to go after is really incredibly important. And when I find my times of wavering in confidence and wavering in my belief system and feeling a lot more in the fear rather than in that faith of like, I can do this mode, I notice that I don't have a strong goal or desire that I'm going after. So I think right now that is like my best answer. I'm sure as my life evolves and people come into my life and I have children eventually, I'm sure that will change over time. But right now it's just the constant chasing after a new desire.
I love that. And then how can we connect with you? How can people say hi?
Please say hi if you're seeing this. Seriously, send me a message. I don't bite. I love talking to people. I love connecting. It's such a fun way to do that. But of course, I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. We've got the Fiercely Unstoppable Entrepreneurs Facebook group. It has approximately 6,000 entrepreneurs in that Facebook group. I do have a podcast, although dormant. It's still incredibly amazing. And I might bring it back this year. I haven't fully decided. But the podcast is called Fiercely Unstoppable, of course. So that is also a place you can connect with me.
I'm going to have all the links for everybody. So that they can, even your Instagram and everything, will have everything available for everybody so that they can connect with you and say hi. But Brooke, you were such a joy to speak to today. Thank you for all the motivation that you gave, on this talk with me today. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Thank you for having me.